How I rent to own homes with no banks and no credit. Let's get started. Hey everyone, I'm Rinde from AskRinde, and welcome to the #1 community for real estate income, grants, and credit. So if you'd like to know how I rent to own homes with no banks or no credit, make sure you watch the video to the end and leave a comment below if you need help with anything. So is the market crashing or headed for correction? No one's sure, so that's why we rent to own homes. Rent to own allows you the flexibility of hedging the market, because we want to pay what the price of the market will be in 2 years and not overpay now. And we have many ways we get rent to own homes, depending on the property type, status, and location. One of the ways we do this is through novation. So novation is the process of replacing the terms and also the obligation of a contract with another. So think of a contract between either a mortgagee and a mortgagor, or a landlord and a tenant, and replacing that contract, both the terms as well as the obligation, with a new contract. That's the process of novation. So you're in essence assuming not only the debt, but you're also assuming the terms of that debt. Now there are other ways that we actually also do it, where you actually just assume the terms and not the debt. But the process of novation that we go through assumes not only the debt, but also assumes the terms as well. So an example of this would be short-term relocation properties. So in many cases, there are executives who actually move from place to place around the country, and they actually work for large companies. These could be multinational companies or national companies. And oftentimes, they need housing. So they actually may be in the process of either purchasing a property, but the deal is not cleared yet. And their new location, where they're moving to, they either haven't found a property or closed on a property yet. So oftentimes, these companies and executives will take out short-term rentals on properties for 1 year, 2 years, and they actually will stay in that property pending the changes and the movement and relocation of the family for that executive anywhere in the country. So along with the short-term lease on their property, they've oftentimes remitted security deposit, which depending on where you are can be a month and a half to 2 months, along with other things such as pet deposits and any other ancillary deposits that have to do with HOA, etc., depending on the property and the location. So through our process with novation, either residential or commercial, we would actually assume their obligation and assume their debt regarding that property. So we would actually replace their current contract with our contract and continue the process of renting the property on a short-term lease until we actually exercise our option to purchase it at a later date. So this process works great with short-term corporate relocation, depending on the area and if you know what you're doing with replacing the terms of the contract. This also works great with short sales. So short sales is when a homeowner actually owes more on the property than what the value of the property is. Oftentimes they're what is called underwater, and they're looking for a way out. So these are actually ideal opportunities for rent to own, and to also get a property that's going to be worth much more in the future than what it is now, depending on how you structure the deal and how you go through the process of the short sale. Many times with the short sale, you need to know how to actually get the bank's valuation to where you need it to be. Oftentimes the banks will try to go for the highest valuation and comps, and you need to know how to find comps and as well as valuations that's going to meet the standard, so you can actually get a proper short sale and a deep discount on a property when it comes to purchasing that property later on. But the great thing about short sales is that oftentimes they take time. And if you actually go through the process properly of replacing the contract, the terms, as well as the obligations, and taking that burden off that homeowner or that property owner, this can actually be a win-win all around. And with short sales and getting a property that's going to be worth much more in the future while you rent to own, it's all about getting the bank to absorb the lowest valuation on that property. There's a process to go through to be able to get them to absorb that low valuation. And oftentimes the banks want to get bad mortgages and bad notes off their books. Another way we actually get properties rent to own with no credit and no banks is through working with absentee owners. So absentee owners are people who actually own multiple properties, sometimes just two, but they actually live in another location. That can be in the current state or it can be in another state. So think of someone who has 2 or more properties. They live in one state, but there are other properties in other states. So that becomes an issue, because if they don't have family or property management on ground to handle the property, it becomes a burden for them. And that's what we're seeing all around the country with many of these people who actually own these properties, and maybe the tenant is not paying, or maybe they're just too much burden with repairs, etc. And they become frazzled, they become tired, they become tired landlords. They don't want to actually deal with it anymore. So they actually are open to the process that we present to them. So they're actually ideal candidates for contract replacement because the burden of dealing with the terms as well as the obligation on that property is too much. Some of them are in pre-foreclosure where they're actually facing losing the property because they're taking monies that they're either getting from that property or not getting from that property to cover where they are. And it becomes a major burden. They're oftentimes carrying either multiple mortgages but not getting enough money to carry it, or maybe something happened and there was a reset at the property and they're actually now burdened with a property that's not producing for them. So they actually are open to the option to be able to get the property moved off of them and the contract replaced. So this is actually just one of the ways that we actually go about the process of getting rent-to-own homes. It's important to know that with these creative real estate strategies, you need to know the language, you need to know the contracts as well as the terms to be able to execute this. But this is how we go and get properties rent-to-own without using banks and without using credit. We don't use credit for these processes. We're able to actually go through based on simple terms and also multiple creative real estate strategies that we use to be able to get properties rent-to-own. Another key to rent-to-own is knowing where the top rent-to-own communities are. Now, these are not ones that are advertised, but knowing how to actually properly find these rent-to-own homes and the types of homes that are optimal homes for rent-to-own. Like we teach you in our rent-to-own masterclass. We show you the different types of rent-to-own homes to go after, and we show you the process from A to Z of how to actually find rent-to-own homes in your area and also other markets. So we'd like to share more with you on the processes and the ways that we actually acquire properties and how we get rent-to-own homes with no credit and no banks. So if you'd like to actually learn more, I'd like to share with you our rent-to-own guide. It's free. If you actually reach out to us and email me at AskRinde@gmail.com, I'll send you our rent-to-own guide where you can actually learn more about the beginning stages of the process of rent-to-own, how to start in your journey to not only getting your first home if that's what you're looking to do, or to get more properties under your belt, to acquire more properties without using banks and also without using debt. These are actually the ways that we've been able to expand our portfolio around the country by using rent-to-own over the years, and also giving people a unique opportunity to actually go from renting to owning. You know, as I always shared here on my channel over the years, that rent-to-own is the bridge in real estate. So if you have never owned real estate, or if you're looking to try to become a real estate entrepreneur where you're a homeowner, you own one property but you want to expand, rent-to-own is the ideal way to do that with no risk, because you're not looking for banks and you're not using your own credit. You're just basically going through a process that we take you through our rent-to-own masterclass to get that executed and get that accomplished and also realized. So this is actually one of the best ways to actually expand yourself in real estate, build up your net worth, build up your equity, and start to actually experience more, expand outside of where you live into other markets without risk. So if you'd like to learn more, I'd like to share with you our rent-to-own guide. It's free. Just reach out to us via email. You can also go to my website at AskRinde.com, click on rent-to-own to learn more about our rent-to-own program. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. You can also email me. My email address is AskRindeNetwork@gmail.com. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Until next time, thank you so much for watching.